So this may seem like something a bit different, but actually this is just matcha. And by the color of the green, of the shade of the green, you can judge how fresh and qualitative it is. And today we're going to talk about matcha itself and how you can make it at home. So let's get right into it. Hi and welcome to moicha.nl. My name is Dima and today we're going to walk through everything you need to know about matcha. So let's start with what matcha actually is. It's actually a green fresh tea that's often made in Japan, mostly, and it composes of the freshest green buds that are found on the tea bush, right? So you have three different grades of matcha. You have the culinary grade, you have the high grade, and also ceremonial matcha. The difference between them is the quality of the leaf. So if you imagine a matcha plant, right? So this is the matcha plant. You'll find the freshest leaves here, right? At the bottom of the stalk. And that's the freshest, the youngest, the most delicate part of the plant. That gets harvested and put into the ceremonial grade matcha. Then the middle leaf is the high grade one. So it's great, but it's not the best. And it has still a lot of soft, almost vanilla-like, fresh green grass-like notes with almost no bitterness. And then here, like the oldest ones, which have a bit more time to mature, that is the culinary grade matcha, which is great to use in cocktails or matcha cakes. But if you would like to drink something more pure, so without any additives like milk or, well, sugar in the form of agave syrup or honey, I would advise you to stick with the high grade or uji, because it will simply give you a better taste experience because it's a bit less bitter. So, culinary grade matcha for cocktails with milk or for culinary use, and the high grade and the ceremonial one are great for pure drinking. And now let's get right into the cool stuff, how to actually make it and what do you use for that. Let's talk about the tea where we need to use to make the matcha. And before we actually start to make the matcha, I'm going to introduce to you everything we need to use. Here you will find two chasens with one very important difference. This is a brand new one, this is a used one. And I'm going to explain and show the difference and what you need to do when you first receive this chasen, fresh out of the package. First, I'm going to ask you, do you see a difference? I think you do, right? Because this one is open and this one is closed. Here you see that these twines have been knotted into a ball to basically transport it, right? So what you need to do, absolutely don't forget the step, because otherwise your chasen will be ruined. Before the first use, you need to put this into a glass and fill it up until here, right? So it needs to be submerged in water, of hot water, boiling hot water, okay? So it can unfurl, and it can open like a flower. If you don't do that, after the first use, it will be ruined and you won't make great foam, but we'll get to that step when we start to make the matcha itself. Actually, fun fact, this is made from one bamboo twig. So here you see the stalk, right? And it gets hand carved like this with an inner and outer layer. So it's a very intricate process, and in Japan it has a lot of attention, of course. Here, let's package this little guy up again, set it aside. This is actually a chasen holder. So you use this to hold the chasen and make it mold free, because when you do something like this, it keeps the inner and the outer layers apart, and it allows it to dry. But before you put it on the chasen holder, you need to clean it well. And sometimes you can do that, for example, with hot water and just your hands. Don't use soap, please. The wood is delicate. And then just clean it like this and make sure there are no spots left. Green spots, very easy to catch, to prevent any mold. And place it on the chasen holder. Do it very carefully though, because if you split the inner layer, that will be a shame. And now, here we have our wonderful matcha bowl, otherwise also called the chawan. And actually, about chawan, chasen, and chashaku, right? In Japanese, it was much more common to say chasen, actually, because you don't have the cha, that's more Chinese, right? So chasen is more Japanese pronunciation, if you want to be completely correct. The chawan or chawan is especially flat because you need it to be flat to actually completely remove any clumps you can find in matcha. That's why this bowl is different than other bowls you can find, and that's why a chawan is actually very handy. So different chawans have grooves, and that's so you can hold it correctly. And actually in the Japanese tea ceremony, they used to spin the chawan around like this. Could you guess why? It's basically because you all drink from one chawan, and when you drink from one chawan, you need to turn it so you every time have different lips touching a different spot. So every time you would pass it, you would turn it like this. Just another quick fact about how it was drank and how it is still drunk in Japan. And now on to the final, but definitely very important piece, the chasaku, right? This is a spoon which would seem very simple at first, but it has one very cool feature. If you do this amount of matcha with a bit on top, you get actually 2 grams, and that's 1 serving. So with this knowledge in mind, you can start, and we can start to prepare the best matcha portion ever. Let's go. And now finally we're gonna make some matcha, and to do that we have some water here, 80 degrees, that's the optimal temperature. Also, well, you can do 70, right, but 80 is also perfectly good. Any higher and you will burn the matcha and you will bring out the bitter notes in there, so you don't want to go there. And lower than 70 is also not really nice because it will be just not the optimal temperature and it will decrease the taste experience. Wouldn't advise. So we also need to have chasen here. And you may notice me also leaving it in hot water for a bit before use. That's optional, but really helps to prolong the longevity of your chasen, right? Because here you see that the bamboo becomes a bit soft, and that's great because it will help remain soft and not chafe away when you start actually whisking the matcha inside of your chawan. Great, so we have our chasen. After that, we of course also need the matcha itself, and here you see that we're using matcha uji. It's a great product, and we'll be making pure matcha actually, so we've chosen that one. Of course, our chawan, quite simple, great bowl. You need to warm it up though before you start to use it, so that the matcha can keep its temperature for a longer time. And let's get some matcha with our chasaku actually, excuse me. So this is the amount we're going to use, around 2 grams, wonderful. And after that, after adding the matcha itself, you can now add just a tiny bit of water. So just enough to cover the bottom of the chawan, actually. Not a lot. We'll add the rest later if you want to drink it pure. After that, we need to start whisking. And there are some specific instructions I would like to give you about this process to get the best foam possible. Don't press down too much. So it needs to be in contact with the bottom, but it doesn't need to be pressed, because that will wear the chasen much quicker than is needed. And the key is basically in moving your elbow. So not doing this, for example, but making quick movements, okay? And moving your elbow together with the fluid motion of your hand really helps with that. And after around 30 seconds, you'll notice, or maybe sooner, depending on how quick you are, there's a very beautiful foam forming here, right? So when you see that kind of foam, you know you're ready. And after that, you can do one of 2 things. You can add a bit more water, like I will do right now, because this will be quite concentrated, especially when you use 2 grams. Or you can just leave it pure. That's also perfectly fine, but it will be a real taste hit basically. So you will feel a lot of the pure notes from the matcha itself. Alrighty, so after adding a bit of water, we'll mix it again, and now it's ready to drink. So check this out once again. Very beautifully green. The foam is just super beautiful. And the taste is actually very fresh, a bit grassy, and not at all bitter. And that's the thing, that the bad matcha that was being used in like, for example, Starbucks or other places, beep this out, it has let people get accustomed to bad matcha that's bitter. But matcha actually isn't bitter at all, especially if you get some good one. So with that being said, I would like to give you the possibility to enjoy this at home. I hope you've learned a lot from this video, and you can also check out our Instagram and also our Facebook for different details. And please subscribe for more educative, fun content. Hope to see you soon, also maybe in the club. Bye bye.